recording. Cool. അപ്പോൾ തുടങ്ങിയാലോ?
Go ahead.
All right. So, Agrim, thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. I've been watching your content for quite some time and truly enjoyable. I know you get a lot of, hate from some of the, people. I read the comments as well. But beautiful stuff, man. Great job.
First of all, Ronnie, I just want to say thank you for having me. It's such a privilege to be here. And yeah, of course, there will be haters. And if they are talking about you, whether it's good or bad, it's a good thing because they are talking about you, right? So yeah, I'm glad it's happening and I'm glad to be here.
Basically, all publicity is good publicity. La?
Any publicity is good publicity indeed. That's the paradigm I live by at this point.
Right. I was actually, bro, I was looking at a lot of your content. I was reading a lot of your, posts and all of that. Adile kanda, one of the things that really struck me is you talk about being an evangelist of the gig economy, right?
Of the gig economy, absolutely.
Yeah. So, basically, in my case, I'm an engineer. I, work in IT. And there's always this thing where, akkara nikkumbo ikkara pacha ennulla situation unnallo where I don't really like doing what I do. And I think of, okay, a business, eppozhum thodangi, can I make, something like this that I really enjoy, a full-time thing and all of that. But at the same time, you talk about the stakes of, this whole thing being really high. It's very difficult to, get this
Manage
whole thing.
it and sort of, yeah. Of course, yeah.
It's not very structured and, you have to figure things out and all of that. About how difficult is it to actually do what you do in the sense that you have to set your own time for things. It's very different. Like last time when we spoke, right, you said that you were working. So it's very different from what someone who does a 9 to 5, actually does.
Yeah, of course, because when you are blessed with the opportunity of a 9 to 5, that's exactly what it is. It's 9 to 5, right? Yeah. For me, it's 9 to 9, 24 hours. You have to be on the clock, right? But I kind of sort of feel that position to be where I am today, to do this 9 to 9, I've been trained my whole life for it, right? In a very funny way, so to speak, right? Because as a kid, my parents told me I could be anything I wanted to be. Right. And so that's exactly what I did. I decided to become everything. Right? So I decided to go ahead and do every single thing that is possible. Right. If there was an opportunity, I would jump at it. When I was in school, I would do it. If there was an elocution competition, I'd go for it. Not because I was particularly good at it. Just thought, okay, it's one way to cut class. If there was painting, I would do it. I write with my right hand, so I'm dexterous on my right hand. But I would like to say, when it comes to painting, I was born with 2 left hands because I'm terrible at it. Okay? And I remember going as far as college, as far as undergraduate college, I went for clay modeling. I've never worked clay in my life, but I was like, okay, clay modeling is happening, so I will go for it. The people who studied with me in college, if they remember, they will tell you that I once signed up for boxing.
Oh my God!
In the athletics. So I always believed in having diverse experiences and doing diverse things, right? And I think that is what sort of prepared me to be doing what I do today, and it helps me to sort of have a diverse gamut of experience and sort of apply that in specific fields. As a digital storyteller, I help brands, individuals, and governments tell better stories about themselves. And to be able to tell better stories, you should have a story of your own. You should be able to look back and connect the dots and say, hey, this is where I came from, this is where I am, and this is how I got here. So I think that experience sort of created this version of me which is able to do this. And obviously, as I'm not getting any younger, so I've learned that I need a little bit of discipline. Earlier, I could go 20 hours doing anything, whether it's having fun or doing work. I could do 20 hours and sleep for 4 hours and wake up and do it again. When I was in college, for example, I used to fest. I used to go for management fests. And those were strenuous 48-hour competitions where you were not allowed to sleep and you just had to keep doing round after round of management related tasks, right? And I used to I'm proud to say I used to excel at it. I used to be the best at it in my college. Now if I look back and I think, okay, would I be able to go back and do the same thing now? No. Now I realize there is a need for discipline. So like you said, I wake up on most weekdays, I have to wake up at 3 a.m. So I make sure that I sleep a little early, and then I get in that good 6 or 7 hours of sleep before I'm up and ready and working again. So I've realized that it's a balance between being a little crazy and being a little disciplined.
And ഇതിന്റെ കാര്യം പറയുമ്പോൾ there's this a notion right now where people talk about, grind, hustle, that thing, right? But how much of
Yeah.
it, in your opinion, is it where, it's like talent has a bigger chunk, or does hard work, hold a bigger chunk? What do you think?
So I don't know what the PG rating of your show is, but I'll tell you
PG,
this much. I'll tell you.
there's no, there's no filter,
Okay.
basically, yeah.
At the attempt of being parliamentary, I will tell you a part of a quote, and you can fill in the blanks. Right? There's something I read when I was very very young. They said success is like getting pregnant. Right? Everyone will congratulate you for the result, but dash. Okay, so that's exactly the point, right? You like at the end of the day, it's I don't know how much of it is talent, right? I wouldn't say I'm an overtly talented person. I believe in my putting in my 10,000 hours of work in doing something and sort of working towards something, right? If I'm not good at something, I know that practice can make me better at it. So I believe that it's all about just keeping at it. So the paradigm that I live by is progress, not perfection. So keep moving forward. You don't have to be perfect at it. If you see my content, it's not perfect. It's not excellently edited. It's not cinematic. I have no background in film studies or any of the technicalities of film for that matter. But I enjoy what I'm doing in terms of film, in terms of media. I enjoy what I'm doing. So I'm self-taught in editing. I'm self-taught in shooting. I'm self-taught in most of these things. But I like to spend my time sort of honing my craft, and I know that although I'm not good at it today, I will be better at it tomorrow than I was yesterday. So that's the sort of drive, and I believe it's just you have to keep practicing. You don't have to be talented at anything. You can pick up literally any skill in the world by just practicing, even singing, guitar, anything for that matter. And trust me, I know this because I've done it. I play the guitar. I've sang on stage, although albeit terribly, but yeah, with a group I've had the fortune of singing on stage and all of these things. So I believe that practice makes perfect.
ഇന്നത്തെ കാലത്ത് we are all motivated by instant gratification. When I say all, not everyone, obviously, not you probably, but a lot of us, we have that thing where ഇപ്പം ഞാൻ ഒരു യൂട്യൂബ് ചാനൽ തുടങ്ങി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, just giving an example of, if I start a YouTube channel, I'll have to, you have those goals, right? That because you see someone who's actually made it in, a year or two, you expect that, എനിക്കും അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ഇത് എത്തണം. That's your expectation. You set the wrong expectations, and then when you don't get there, you're disappointed, right? So that's the problem with what we're dealing with today. But at the same time, you talk about what Malcolm Gladwell talks about in his book Outliers, 10,000 hour rule and all of that, right? Where I mean, if you don't mind explaining the rule for people who don't know, it's pretty straightforward, but still.
Right. So yeah, in his book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell talks about how if you want to be the best at something, essentially, if you look at the people who have been the best at what they do, they have put in at least 10,000 hours of work to be able to get where they are. If you were to collate that to 1 hour every day, it would take you 27 years, which is half a lifetime, in my opinion, to get to that point where you are the best at what you're doing. If it's swimming, if you swim every day for 1 hour for 27 years, I'm sure you can get as good as Michael Phelps. If it's making computers, you can be the next Steve Jobs if you spend your 10,000 hours in doing that. Whether it's writing, filmmaking, any field, you can do that. But that being said, you spoke about instant gratification, and I believe there warrants reasoning to say that yes, instant gratification is something that we require, right? If people are not patting you on your back and telling you, hey, you're doing a good job, sometimes you don't know where you're going, right? For me, I have been fortunate enough to have a sort of network of friends who were all sort of striving and struggling in the same field that I am and doing the same things that I am. So they've always got my back. They're the ones egging me on. So in terms of instant gratification, if that's what you seek, if it's reassurance you seek, I would say find your tribe, people who are like-minded, people who are on the same plane as you when it comes to their thought processes, where people who are doing the same thing that you are. Because if you are somebody who is doing something technical and your friend is somebody who's doing arts, of course you can marry those two ideas and make something great out of it. But at the same time, they will not be able to understand what you're doing as well as somebody who is in the same field as you. So try to find your tribe of people who either complement or complement as in who are complementary to your skill, or who are on the similar skill path or a road as you are, and then you might be able to sort of get that instant gratification that you seek. But of course, again, it'll be a very small group of people who will be doing that, and 90% of the people otherwise outside of that circle will all be questioning you, questioning your efforts, and questioning why you are doing this. And to that, like I always say, it's progress, not perfection, that will give them the answer. You have to just keep going forward and just shut out those naysayers and haters who say, hey, you're not good at what you're doing, because they don't know, because they're not doing it. At the end of the day, right? They don't know what to do, and they are not doing it. At least you're giving it a shot. So next time somebody questions you and says, hey, what are you doing? It doesn't seem like you're doing the right thing. Ask them, are you doing the same thing as me, to be an expert in this field and know whether this is right or wrong? And then maybe you'll be able to shut them up.
Yeah, and you know that judgment into everything that's always there, right? Especially when you start off. When I was starting off YouTube, I just made random videos. So I've been doing YouTube for 5 years. Okay, I mean different channels. I've had 4 channels. Nothing's really worked out. But ഞാനും എൻ്റെ ഒരു ഫ്രണ്ടും another friend who actually does YouTube, no one else gets it, like you said, because I don't have a lot of friends who do this. So a lot of people think that, even എന്തിനാ വെറുതെ സമയം കളയുന്നത്, like ആദ്യം തന്നെ you're actually doing a job where you work 10 hours, 12 hours, and then why do you go back and spend your weekends on this? And a lot of people don't understand, like you said. And the benefit that you have is that the people around you are doing kind of the same thing. That's the benefit that you have, and all of your friends, all of them are actually doing that. So I think that's a really important point in terms of how do you, it's important to have that group of people who understand you, relate to you. So yeah, that's something that makes a lot of
sense. Absolutely, I feel blessed to have that team. And of course, and the sondam veettilundi, like my parents, if I try to explain to my parents what I do, it'll be a little difficult, because they are traditionalists. They are people from a STEM background. They are science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That's been their background, and they know only two jobs in this world, which is either be a doctor or be an engineer. Yeah. Right? And to them, this idea of doing something outside of that realm, outside of the stability of these realms, is an impossibility, right? And it's been very difficult, but over time, it's become a lot easier for me to convince them and say, hey, this is what I do, because maybe they just gotten used to it. They're like, either it's that, or B, they're actually trying to be accommodating and understand that, okay, this is something he's good at, something he's passionate about, so let's give him this sort of space to try out what he wants to. And I'm grateful for that too. At the same time, something that I've realized is, I told you I'm not able to explain what I do to my parents, right? I feel that is a lacking on my part, because I once read that if you are not able to explain what you do in simple terms to a 5-year-old child, it means you're doing bullshit. You're doing absolutely nothing. Right. So if I were to boil it down to the most simplest and essential forms, I told you already, I help brands, individuals, and governments tell better stories about themselves. That is a line that I have sort of had to tweak and perfect over the years, right? I did not arrive at that answer on day one. So on day one, I did not know, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to help brands and individuals tell better stories about themselves. I had to sort of arrive at that conclusion slowly. So I'm not saying that I had the answers when I started out, and I'm not saying that I do right now, but it's been a process. And obviously this definition of who I am, I'm willing to change it as time goes by.
Something ഇപ്പൊ ഞാൻ നേരത്തെ ചോദിക്കേണ്ട ഒരു കാര്യമായിരുന്നു. You do a lot of things, right? You are a content creator. You're a digital storyteller. Basically, you have acted in commercials. I think, I don't know if you have acted in anything else.
I did. Yeah.
I did see
I've actually acted in a web series. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Hoping I've done, like, I was part of one episode. I have a sort of cameo, but yeah, I'm hoping it'll see the light of day soon.
Okay, it hasn't
very
come
happy
out
with it. Yeah. It's not yet. Yeah. So just waiting on it.
Yeah, and then you said boxing and a lot of other things that you do as well. So, I mean, when did you? Okay, let's go back a little bit more. Where I read another post of yours where you said that you went into engineering without really knowing what you wanted to do in life. And Satyam Barna, that's the case with a lot of kids that are growing up. It was the case with me. If you ask me even now, I'm not 100% sure of what I really want to do, because it keeps changing. As you grow, as you get wiser, your thought process changes, and a lot of things keep moving around, right? I get a lot of texts from, like, DMs from a lot of these kids who are like 18, 17, 12th കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട്. The question that they ask a lot is, ചേട്ടാ കുറെ സാലറി ഒക്കെ നല്ലപോലെ കിട്ടുമോ എന്നാണ് എഞ്ചിനീയറിങ്ങിന് പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞ് ഒരു ബാംഗ്ലൂർ വന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ജോലി കിട്ടുമോ, ദീസ് ആർ ദ തിങ്സ് ദാറ്റ് ഐ ഗെറ്റ് എ ലോട്ട്. And the only thing I tell them is that try to find something that you'll really enjoy, because you have to do this for the next 30-35 years or even something like that.
More, yeah.
But I somehow feel that our message, it doesn't relate to people. And probably when we were young as well, at least when I was young, I always wanted to make more money. That was, the only thing that I thought about then. And I got into computer engineering thinking that I was so dumb that I thought I would be playing, I love playing computer games. I like editing stuff on computers. And I thought that's what, if you get into computer science, you can do a lot of stuff that relates to that. But the reality is very different. So do you get a lot of, people coming and asking you, what do I want to do? What do I have to do? Yeah.
There's a lot of irony to that whole section of my life. So to start off with some background about myself, I did do engineering. In fact, very early on in my engineering course, I realized that I don't like it, and I dropped out immediately after my 4th year, after the course was over. Okay.
When you say dropped out after the course was over,
which means I did 4 years of engineering.
So you did, you completed it, you have the course certificate.
I completed 4 years. I completed 4 years of engineering, but at the end of the 4th year, I was like, nope, this is not what I want to do. And
right.
and in my first year, I was an okay student, and I had a lot of help from my friends, and they would actually egg me on to study and all of that. I'm still friends with most of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because of the sort of support system that I had, and because of how limited the scope of the scope of learning was in the first year, I was able to pass all my subjects.
Yeah.
From there, it was a downhill track. Okay. And it was really bad for me, right? I think the peak was, 32 supplees, 32 years. And I think I left with 27, right? I left engineering with 27 areas. When I finished my first year, my ex-girlfriend messaged me. She said, hey, congratulations. You are quarter the engineer you will ever be. Right?
Yeah.
And that was after my first year. Funny thing is, 4 years later, 10 years later, I'm still quarter the engineer I will ever be. I haven't grown beyond that level because I was not able to complete the course requirements. I was not able to pass my subjects. And I never understood why I was studying what I was. I studied electronics and communication, and they taught us obsolete concepts, half-wave rectifiers, full-wave rectifiers, resistors, capacitors, diodes, all of this stuff. When we are in an era where everything is done using semiconductors, everything is done using microchips, right? And we did not touch microchips until my final year. So I always wondered, what the hell is the point of studying this obsolete stuff?
Yeah.
Why will I learn this stuff? And even in 12th, I took science, and I was not excellent at it. I had an aptitude for science. I loved the subject, but I did not score well in the subject. Even there, I always remember studying stuff that did not, like, for example, I think you start with something known as Rutherford's alpha scattering experiment, where Rutherford would send alpha particles at a gold foil and see that some of them go through, some of them bounce back. So that's how he describes the structure of the atom. Then we go to J.J. Thomson's structure of the atom. Then we go to Niels Bohr's structure of the atom. Funny thing is, all of these structures are wrong. That's not how the atom looks. These guys just had like a blind idea of what it could be.
Yeah.
And we are never taught what the atom actually looks like until maybe towards the end of your 12th standard or probably your first year of engineering. Right? And I always wondered why it is that we are taught these obsolete concepts, right? And one day at the peak of my frustration in 3rd year, when I was lost, I had no idea. I had this digital signals processing professor by the name of Professor Divakar. I don't know where he is now, but yeah. I had this DSP professor, and he was a very, he was a very respected figure and all of that. And he knew that I was not good at engineering, and for him, engineering was his life and blood, right? And I remember going to Professor Divakar, and he was obviously insulting me. He was on top of my head. He was like, yo, you're not good at this. Why are you doing this? You quit. You drop out. Blah, blah, blah. So I was like, all right, I'll drop out. You want me to get out, but let me ask you this question. Why are we learning this obsolete crap? What is the point of us learning this stuff? So Divakar stopped what he was doing. He looked at me and he said, 4 years from today, no one is going to ask you what a half-wave rectifier is. No one is going to ask you what a full-wave rectifier is. No one is going to ask you what J.J. Thomson's model of the atom is. These things do not matter. in these engineering colleges, in these institutions where you are studying, you are essentially going into a diamond making factory. You are a piece of carbon that comes into a diamond making factory, and pressure is applied on you.
Yeah.
And you are taught to deal with pressure. It doesn't matter what you study. It's just that you have to study it, give your 100% to the task that you're given to, submit your work on proper deadlines, right, and learn how to communicate with people. If you're able to do that, you are cut out and ready to be part of the workforce. Your TCSs, your Wipros, your Infosys, they all require people who are able to do this, who are able to work in high stress, high pressure environments and deliver stuff on deadlines. That is why you have 96 odd exams and hundreds of submissions, and God knows how many lab reports that you have to keep. Half the stuff you can Google and find out today. Then why are you still learning it? Because this is why you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to learn this so that you can manage pressure better. So that whole experience with Professor Divakar changed my perspective on life. And I learned that day that studying engineering is not for you to understand what a half-wave rectifier is, what a full-wave rectifier is, but rather for you to understand how to deal with pressure, A, and B, how to approach a problem logically. I told you I'm quarter the engineer that I'll ever be. After studying engineering, I had the fortune of going and studying finance. I had the fortune of being able to study BBA in finance. And I remember sitting in those classrooms, and I remember how the people with a commerce background or with a finance background who came to that classroom sat and answered questions, and how I answered questions. And I remember thinking that, hey, I am approaching these problems differently because of my background in engineering. And even today, when I look at a problem, I'm able to approach it with that same sort of, with a heightened, a heightened respect or consideration towards the logic of it all than, say, somebody from a non-engineering background. So if there is a person who comes up to you and asks you, hey, why should I do engineering? I would say, if you are looking to have a logical approach towards life and know how to deal with deadlines and be structured and be disciplined and know how to manage pressure, then engineering is the best place for you to be turned into that perfect sort of pressure handling diamond. So that's all it is, right? Half the stuff that you studied, you said you studied computer science. Half the programming languages that you studied were obsolete. Do you use any of them today?
Okay, so first thing is that by the time I got out of college, I realized that എനിക്ക് പറ്റുന്ന ഒരു സാധനം അല്ല ഇത്. So what I did is I actually got into IT companies, but I worked primarily in the non-IT stuff. Like now I work in sales operations, so it's more about data analysis and visualization. So I over a period of time, over 8 years, I did maybe 10 different things, and I tried to figure out if I have to do this for the next 20 years. എനിക്ക് പറ്റുന്നത് എന്താ എൻ്റെ ഒരു ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് ലെവൽ. ഐ ലുക്ക്ഡ് അറ്റ് ദാറ്റ് because you don't want to be you don't want to just be a machine that is doing things that people tell you. I can't function like that. I find it really difficult when people tell me what to do, and that's something that I have a big problem with.
But of course, see, that's the thing. Everybody has a different approach, right? Some people need that push. Some people need to be told what to do, right?
Exactly.
And for them, it is still a wonderful career option, right? I would 10 out of 10 recommend engineering to anyone who has the guts to do it, because it will teach you, and especially engineering in India, specifically studying engineering in India, because it'll teach you the art of jugaad. Right, it'll teach you udaip in right? Right, like you said you want to get into sales and all of that, right? So I'll remember the first sort of experience that I had with negotiations, right, was one of my friends. He decided to I don't know how it works, but in the final year of engineering in most colleges, they have a project, right? You have to submit a project. From what I've heard, most of these private engineering colleges, nobody actually does the project.
They
borrow it from a senior.
We pay someone to get it done for us.
Exactly. So there's this company based out of Chennai where my friend went, and he just went there and he negotiated with those people, and he got the best rate possible. And his project got an award. Okay. Now, he himself doesn't know what the project is about. He has no clue what the project is about, but he got an award for the best project.
Right.
So he might not be a good engineer, but he's an excellent manager. He was able to manage that situation really, really well. And today he is managing a company as big as Microsoft, or I think he's working with Ernst & Young now. Okay, so he's had the experience of managing Microsoft, and now he's with Ernst & Young. He's with one of the big 4 firms and all of that. So that version of who he is today is a result of all the udaip, all the jugaad that he did as an engineer. So I would always recommend people go and do engineering, because if you do engineering, then you can literally do anything in this world. You want to go be an actor, you can be an actor. So you want to be a lawyer, you can be a lawyer. After doing engineering, you can do whatever it is, and you will be the most hutcase, most different person in your field. 10 out of 10.
I really like how you, took away everything, that's happened in terms of ipo itra supply adichittum, rather than being like, fuck engineering, man, what the fuck did I do with my life? You choose to look at it in a positive light, and probably it's, helped you in such a way. That's why you're looking at it, from that positive aspect, because a lot of the time, I regretted ever going into engineering, not taking a stand. Ipo njan veetil I didn't know what to do. So I took science after 10th. I again, 11th and 12th science eduthu. And I'll tell you what the reason was. So, when I think about it, right, out of all the 5 subjects that we had, science lana njan etto mark score edadu. It's not because I had an aptitude for science or anything, I just mucked up stuff, just go and get it done. So 92, I got 92 out of 100 or something, and that was a big deal. And my parents were like, oh man, you got 92 in science, so you have to do science, you have to become an engineer. And see, for our parents also, it's a big deal, right, when you're the first
pride.
Yeah, because I was one of the first engineers from my family, so it matters a lot to them. And they say that enda moon ivada placement kitti, it's a big deal. So it's a matter of pride and all of that. But when you spoke about this, enda manasil vannoru karyana, I figured out a system, after the first few months of doing engineering. Even though all of my friends, I was a pakka orappan only the last 2-3 days of, before the exam. I don't give a shit. I will work my ass off to get through it. And I used to work hardest for the internal exams. Out of 150, you have 50 marks for the internal. So attendance is like your 10 marks. And then if you get 35 out of 50, you just need passing mark. Like 75 out of 150 is total vendadu. So if you get 35 here,
another 35, yeah. Another 35 is all you require.
So it's just pass mark. But basically, a lot of teachers, anna ivane pass aaki vittekam nu vicharichu, they give you, that 35 marks, rather 40 marks that you need to, get through. But I figured out that system, and then I kept working in that manner, where internals aanalil njan padikkum, just to get through. And I think, when you're talking about this, it really makes a lot of sense, because I still follow a lot of those, aspects of how I used to do things in engineering ippozhum. And ആ 4 വർഷത്തെ പഠിച്ച് about life. So I was born and raised in Bahrain. എൻ്റെ ഗ്രാൻഡ് ഫാദറൊക്കെ ഞാൻ നാട്ടിൽ വരുമ്പോൾ ദേ യൂസ്ഡ് ടു ബി ലൈക്ക് അമൂൽ ബേബി, ഇവർ ബ്രോയിലർ ചിക്കനാ, ബിക്കോസ് യു ആർ നോട്ട് യൂസ് ടു ദ വേ ലൈഫ് ഇസ് ഇൻ ഇന്ത്യ, അല്ലേ? ഇപ്പോൾ പീപ്പിൾ ക്യാൻ ടേക്ക് അഡ്വാൻറ്റേജ് ഓഫ് യു. A lot of these things are, that's what the misconception is. But there's another side to it, where ഇപ്പം അറബി നാട്ടിലാണേലും അവിടെ അറബികളായിട്ട് you have your issues and all of that. You get slapped on the face, you can't do shit. So you go through your shit as well, even though it's a little more privileged. Adhe ulla inde vyathyasam. So I think those 4 years really taught me so much about life in general.
No, of course, see, I can relate with a lot of what you're saying, because I also grew up in a similar environment. I also grew up in the Middle East for a better part of my life. And അന്നത്തെ കാലത്തൊക്കെ, അതായത് ഞാനൊക്കെ പഠിച്ചിറങ്ങുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഗൾഫിൽ നിന്ന് വരുന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, ഓ വലിയ ആളാണ്, ഗൾഫിൽ നിന്നൊക്കെയാണ്. ഇന്നൊക്കെ ലൈക്ക് ഇഫ് യു സേ യു ഫ്രം ദ ഗൾഫ്, ലൈക്ക് ആ പുല്ല് ഗൾഫ് കിഡ്. ഓക്കെ, so people in Kerala or in India did not have that much of an exposure, as much as say somebody in the Middle East would have. And I was also lucky, because I grew up in a rather cosmopolitan environment. I was not part of the typical Mallu guy going to a Mallu family, living in a Mallu area. No, we lived in a very cosmopolitan area. I went to a very cosmopolitan school. So people from all walks of life, from different nationalities, used to come. So I like to think that whole experience made me more worldly.
Yeah.
But like you said, when I came to India, it was a huge culture shock. I was all like, for example, I'll give you an example. Like I grew up in a dry state. I grew up in Kuwait, right? There was no alcohol accessible. Like alcohol was like a big thing. It was like drugs back in the middle. Oh my God, you scored alcohol. That was like stuff in a mineral water bottle. Okay, it was terrible. Okay, so alcohol is like a big deal, and if you get caught with it, you go to jail and all of that stuff, right? Then I come here, and you can walk into a shop and you can buy alcohol, and I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I'm having the culture shock of my life. I'm like, what? You stand in line and you can just buy alcohol like this?
Yeah.
And over time, again, years later, I moved elsewhere. I was living in Thailand. After about 10 years in India, I lived in Thailand for about a year. And during that time, it was even better because you can walk into a department store, you can walk into a supermarket, and you can buy alcohol.
Yeah.
And I'm shocked. So again, a culture shock, right? So how you sort of handle those culture shocks, in my opinion, makes you more worldly.
Mm.
And again, that is another sort of facet that will set you apart from the crowd and make you completely different in your outlook towards the world. And that different outlook will give different results from the normal status quo, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, an example that I always, tell people, Gulf in the Pillar, one thing that I actually talk about is the first time KSRTC the first time, or private bus the first time. And I don't think I'll ever forget this. The first time I got in, I actually scraped my legs, my hands, everything, because I was standing, there was no seat. You're not used to this, that change in momentum
Momentum and kulukam and anakam of the Anavandi. I was I was fortunate enough. I had spent a little bit of my childhood in Kerala. Like I left Kerala only when I was 5 years old, and I have memory of doing all these things. And plus, I used to visit Kerala often, and India in general, I used to visit it pretty often. So I had a fair understanding of how India works, and I was well read on the matter. Then years later, much later, can you imagine, as late as 2000 and if I'm not mistaken, 2018, before the pandemic, 2018. Yeah, the year is 2018. I had this friend of mine. I'm not going to say who. He also grew up abroad. He also grew up like outside of India. And he's never had the fortune or misfortune of stepping into an Anavandi ever, and like wherever he wanted to go, he's had a car, wherever he. So one day, and this is like, imagine, we are like 2018, we're still like figuring life out. We are on a limited shoestring budget and all of that. So we have to go for a meeting, and it's in Calicut. And we're going from Ernakulam. And I was like, okay, bro, let's take the train. But because we are who we are, we missed the train.
Yeah.
And our only option is to take the Anavandi, is to take a KSRTC from Ernakulam bus stand. So I'm like, come, get in the bus. So we run, get into the bus, and we find a seat and we sit down. Then this dude, he looks around, and then he looks at me and he's like, dude, where's the seatbelt? And I was like, what? He's like, where is the seatbelt? How do you sit in this thing? Yeah, I was like, there is no seatbelt. And then he's like, does it recline? I was like, no, yes. It doesn't recline. Okay. Seat recline now. So yeah, that culture shock is something else, but that is an experience unto itself, right? Definitely. For those who are experiencing it firsthand, and for those who are experiencing it secondhand. Right? For him, this is the experience of a lifetime. I don't think it's like being on a roller coaster, right? Going on a KSRTC bus. And for me, who's seasoned in this art of being inside a KSRTC bus, I look at him and I'm having the time of my life because I'm laughing at his predicament.
Yeah.
So I think the culture shock in itself is a beauty, because it is a joy to those who experience it, and to those who have the fortune of watching people experience it.
And the other thing is, I know you're also someone who travels quite a bit whenever the opportunity arises and all that, right?
Yes.
Something that I always think of is that ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഒരു സ്ഥലത്ത് പോകുമ്പോൾ അവരുടെ കൾച്ചറും, and you actually become a lot more open-minded. It's not just about, going for that vacation, staying in the hotel and sitting on the beach, right? There's a lot more to travel than that. So even, all these experiences, KSRTC experience aanalum, hostel life aanalum, being away from your parents for the first time, managing money, all that actually, when I think about it now, even though a lot of those things were difficult back then, all of those experiences actually shape you and, make you who you are. Yeah.
Of course. See, I feel that people who are judgmental of you, people who are judgmental in general, are judgmental because they are limited in their worldview.
Yeah.
I was watching this very interesting interview with probably the most well-traveled man in all of Kerala. His name is Santosh George Kulangara.
Oh yes.
He's traveled so far and wide that he's going to space now. Spalberg, yeah. So I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of his work. As a kid, I used to watch his show. By the way, did you know that if you've seen Sanjaram, Did you know that it's two different people? The guy who's holding the camera is not the one who's speaking.
Who's speaking? He had come to my school in Bahrain and all that,
wow.
He was a friend of the principal's, and I used to watch Asianet News just to watch Sanjaram. That's how
watch the show. Same. I grew up watching the show, and I was always very fascinated by this man, right? And over the years, I think somewhere along the way, like once YouTube and all came, he sort of took a back seat, and he went into managing his own publication and all of that stuff. And he has a channel, and he caters to a different demographic today. But now again, he's coming into the limelight, and there are these interviews of his on YouTube, and one of the things he said really resonated with me, right? He said, people in India, people in our culture especially, have a disdain towards what is called quote unquote Western culture.
Right.
So when we look at how people sort of treat Western culture, what happens is they think that, hey, it's a bad idea, right? Like half the things are judged, like people walk around in beaches without wearing clothes, right? But if you understand the reasoning behind why people walk around beaches without wearing clothes, it'll make sense to you. For example, he says that these people who walk around beaches wearing nothing but bikinis or whatever it is, right, or topless for that matter, it's because in their country they don't get sun for more than 3 months in a year, and they are required by the doctor to go and get vitamin C by standing out, vitamin D, whatever it is, by standing out in the vitamin D by standing out in the sun. Right. So they are prescribed by the doctor. So when they get a chance, they immediately take off their clothes and they stand out in the sun. Right. So who is more vulgar? Who is more vulgar? The person who is going there for literally saving his body from harm, or the person who looks at this lecherously and comments saying, "Yo, what are you doing? You're naked." So whose cultural perspective is worse? So this made me think that when you're more worldly, when you have the fortune of traveling around the world, you get to meet more people and understand their perspective and sort of think from their shoe, feel empathy for them. So that is something that, like you said, you're an NRI. As an NRI, you've seen both ends of the spectrum. You would have seen how the people live abroad and people live in India, and you're able to relate to both these places, right? And how has that been for you, if you don't mind me asking?
When you said this, all of a sudden there's this thought that came into my head. Okay. F1, the Formula 1 races happen in, Bahrain also. And
Bahrain, the Grand Prix happens in Bahrain.
Grand Prix happens. When I was 17, 18, that age, that's when this whole thing started, I believe. That was the first Grand Prix. And you could go and volunteer and actually, you get these, they have these, room kind of things where you can stand and watch the, cars go by and all that. You used to get per day, 40 dinars or something, which is like, almost 8K. 8,000 rupees. It used to be a big deal. And, we used to, just for those 2 days, you find a way and go to this desert, and then you go stand in this room and you just stand and watch it. And then guests, they used to keep coming in. So, used to have these ultra rich dudes, in the sense that, Arabic they're, proper robe. They're these huge people, and and then you have stacks of money that they have in their pockets. So this guy was a Saudi, and there was me, and there was 5 or 6 German girls who had actually come in from Germany just to cater to this. So you're like a waiter in a sense. You're just standing there and giving them what they need and all that. They're watching the match. This guy, when he came into the room for 20 minutes, and then when he left, he took, so 20 BD is the highest denomination there in Bahrain. So എല്ലാവർക്കും 6 പേര് 7 പേര് നിൽക്കുന്ന എല്ലാവർക്കും 2 20 ബീഡർ നോട്ട് എടുത്ത് he's just giving everyone, and
giving away.
I don't know why I thought of that right now, but like you said, I've seen that side of the spectrum where you have these ultra rich dudes who walk around with stacks of money.
Stacks of money.
Yeah, if Floyd Mayweather ingana kaashu kaanikkuna കാണുന്ന പോലെ, that was my nearest experience to something like that. So I think it has helped me a lot in the sense that, like you said, I'm a lot more worldly. I can really talk to an Australian guy or an American guy and not really have an issue, understanding their culture or
അതാണ് അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ലോകം കണ്ടിട്ട് ഇവിടെ വന്നിട്ട് 10 രൂപയുടെ മുട്ട പപ്സിന് വേണ്ടി തലുണ്ടാക്കുന്ന നമ്മൾ വരും. That's the benefit of being worldly, right? You can, എന്താ പറഞ്ഞ, മലയാളത്തിൽ ചൊല്ലുണ്ട്, പാമ്പിനെ തിന്നുന്ന നാട്ടിൽ പോയാൽ നടു കഷ്ണം തിന്ന് ജീവിക്കണം എന്ന് പറയുന്ന പോലെയാണ്. So that sort of that sort of outlook towards life will make you go places, in my opinion.
And my wife and I, one of our main goals in life is to travel. So we make it a point that after slogging these 11 months in a year, you try and save up money so that you can go and see different places. And there's nothing like it. There's nothing like that experience of going to a place, learning their culture, being open-minded, basically. Like you said, why are people not wearing clothes when it's sunny outside? That's a very good example of the different ways in which you can think and why it's important to be open-minded. But ഇതിന്റെ കാര്യം പറഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ you had recently traveled to Russia and then from Russia you had gone to the US, അല്ലേ? ആ ഒരു സമയത്ത് I think you had put out a post after you reached the US saying that there's a reason behind wanting to do this, and a lot of people I think had a lot of hateful things to say in terms of ഇവിടെ ആൾക്കാർ കഷ്ടപ്പെടുമ്പോൾ ഇവൻ പോയി ഇവനും ഇവന്റെ ഫ്രണ്ട്സും കൂടെ പോയി റഷ്യയിൽ അടിച്ചു പൊളിക്കുവാണ്. That's the impression that you get. Recently I got a comment on one of my videos. There's this channel called Appupan and the Boys. It's a pretty so I had done this interview with this guy Anand like 6-7 months back, and recently ഒരു കമന്റ് വന്നതാണ്, ഇവിടെ നാട്ടിൽ ഇത്തരം പ്രശ്നങ്ങൾ ഉള്ളപ്പോഴാണ് അവന്റെ അപ്പൂപ്പൻ and the boys എന്ന്. And I was like, dude, what does that have to do with this? So in the same sense, you have people don't really get the full picture and they just want to be judgmental and comment. And you are probably someone, you and your group of friends are probably people who have a little more reach than me or any a lot of the other people. So the intensity of the hate you get on social media is a lot.
ഇഷ്ടം പോലെ കിട്ടാറുണ്ട്. And I'm not going to lie, it does affect me, right? ആദ്യം ഒന്നും ഇത് അഫക്ട് ചെയ്തില്ലെന്നാണ് ഞാൻ വിചാരിച്ചത്. ആദ്യം ഉടവ ഇതൊക്കെ ആൾക്കാർ പറയും, അവർക്ക് പറയാനുള്ള ലോക് तो कुछ कहेंगे, कहना है उनका काम. But funnily enough, ഇത് എവിടെ വെച്ച തുടങ്ങണമെന്ന് എനിക്കത്. അപ്പൂപ്പൻ ആൻഡ് ദ ബോയ്സ്, അപ്പൂപ്പൻ ആൻഡ് ദ ബോയ്സ്, ലെറ്റ്സ് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് വിത്ത് ദാറ്റ്, റൈറ്റ്? ഇത് മറ്റേ എന്താ സവർ ഗ്രേപ്സ് ആറ്റിറ്റ്യൂഡ്, റൈറ്റ്? ഇത് കിട്ടാത്ത മുന്തിരി പുളിക്കും എന്ന് പറയത്തില്ലേ, എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ പോലെയാണ്. ഇപ്പൊ എന്റെ കൂടെ ഉള്ളവരുണ്ട്, എന്റെ കൂടെ പഠിച്ചവരുണ്ട്, ഓക്കെ? എന്റെ കൂടെ പഠിച്ച, എന്റെ കൂടെ എന്താ ഒരേ പ്ലേറ്റിൽ ഉണ്ട്, ഒരേ പായ ഉറങ്ങിയ ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. എന്റെ കൂടെ കോളേജിൽ പഠിച്ച ആൾക്കാർ. ഞാൻ എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് ആണ് പഠിച്ചത്, ഓക്കെ? And I am not saying that I am doing better than anybody or worse than anybody, but ende kuda engineering padichu, when I was in engineering, I was exactly the same person. There was no difference, right? I was the same crazy person. I used to, if you go back, if anybody is able to go back and sort of search my Facebook archives and all that, you will see that I used to have a culture where I was always this crazy. I used to record and document my life like this, and I loved social media for that matter, right? And I try to make the best of it whenever and wherever possible. Little did I know that I would be making a living out of it years later. But എന്റെ കൂടെ എഞ്ചിനീയറിംഗ് പഠിച്ചവരുണ്ട്. അവർ അന്നത്തെ കാലത്ത് എൻ്റെ കൂടെ ഇങ്ങനെ കളിച്ചും ചിരിച്ചൊക്കെ നടക്കുവാൻ. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞ് they all got serious, like you said, they got their 9 to 5s and they started going to works, and they're all doing extremely well in life. അവരൊക്കെ വളരെ വലിയ കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്, വളരെ നല്ല കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്, ഓക്കെ? ചിലർ നാസയിലായിരിക്കും, ചിലർ മൈക്രോസോഫ്റ്റിലായിരിക്കും, ഈ പറഞ്ഞാൽ പലരും പല നല്ല ആവന്യൂസിലാണ് ജീവിക്കുന്നത്. And I can still hear when they talk to me, okay, or when they talk to people and people who are in my field, right? And they've had the fortune of meeting my friends, they've had the fortune of hanging out with my friends. I can still hear a sort of contempt in their voice. They're like, oh, what you're doing is not a real job, what I'm doing is a real job. ആ ഒരു ആറ്റിറ്റ്യൂഡ് ഉണ്ട്. അതായത് this is unlike you, I do this full time, right? ഞാൻ ഈ മൈക്രോഫോണും പിടിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഈ ലാപ്ടോപ്പിന് മുമ്പിൽ ഇരിക്കുന്നു, പിന്നെ കോപ്രായം കാണിക്കുന്നു, തലയും കുത്തി നിൽക്കുന്നു, മറ്റേ പശുവിന്റെ ഡ്രസ് ഇട്ട് ഡാൻസ് കളിക്കുന്നു. That is a full time gig for me. I don't do anything else other than this. That is who I am. It's part of it's definitive of who I am, right? And എന്താണേലും ഈ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ ഞാൻ ചെയ്യാറുണ്ട്. ആൻഡ് ഇതൊക്കെ നീ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഇതൊന്നും ഒരു കാര്യമില്ല, ഇതിലൊന്നും ഒരു കാര്യമില്ല. This is not, and then there's another group where they are like, oh, നിങ്ങൾ എന്താ ചെയ്യുന്നത്, you're making art, oh, this is not real art. ഇങ്ങനെ പറയുന്ന ഒരു ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. So these are the first level of haters that I've had the fortune of encountering. And I used to first feel dejected, thinking, oh my god, I'm not doing something real, I'm not doing something that's worthwhile. Then I think ഈ പറയുന്നവൻ, ഇങ്ങനെ എന്നെ കളിയാക്കി പറയുന്നവൻ, റിയൽ ജോബ് ചെയ്യുന്നവൻ, അവൻ പോയി അവന്റെ റിയൽ ജോബിൽ 3000 രൂപ ഉണ്ടാക്കിയിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ദിവസം, ആ 3000 രൂപയ്ക്കകത്ത് അവൻ 120 രൂപ എടുത്ത് അവൻ PVRലോ സിനിമാക്സിലോ പോയിട്ട് കാശ് മുടക്കി കാണാൻ പോകുന്ന എന്നെ പോലെ ആൾക്കാർ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന ആർട്ടാണ്. He makes a living out of what he does. but for him to actually live, he requires people like me. ഈ പറഞ്ഞ അപ്പൂപ്പൻ എന്താ ബോയ്സിനെ കളിയാക്കുന്നവൻ, അവൻ വീട്ടിൽ ഇരുന്ന് ചൊറിയും കുത്തി ഇരിക്കുമ്പോൾ അവന് കാണാനായിട്ട് എന്തെങ്കിലും വേണം. അതിന് നമ്മളെപ്പോലുള്ളവർ കഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട് പണിയെടുത്ത് അവിടെ whether come rain or shine, if somebody is working and creating content, only does he have something to consume, whether that's you or me. We do this not just for ourselves but for the people around us, and we are doing something bigger than us, right? And most of these people take it for granted and tend to forget that what we are doing is not just for us but a service to our fellow man, right? അവരെ ചിരിപ്പിക്കാൻ പറ്റുവാണെങ്കിൽ, അവരെ ചിന്തിപ്പിക്കാൻ പറ്റുവാണെങ്കിൽ, that is more than enough. In my book, right? That is more than enough. That's a day's work well done for me, right? But most people tend to forget this and tend to forget the fact that, hey, this is why we are doing it. Right? And they need this. They feed off of it. You're telling me this person who came, ഈ പറഞ്ഞ ആളില്ലേ മറ്റേ നമ്മുടെ അപ്പൂപ്പനെ ബോയ്സിനെ കളിയാക്കാൻ, അവൻ ഈ സാധനം കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടല്ലോ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവൻ എങ്ങനെ അറിയാം ഇങ്ങനെ പരിപാടി ഉണ്ടെന്ന്? അവൻ അത് ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടോ ഇല്ലയോ എന്ന് എനിക്ക് അറിയത്തില്ല, പക്ഷെ അവൻ അത് കാണുന്നുണ്ട്. അത് കാണുന്ന പോലെ അവൻ സീരിയലും കാണും, ടിവിയും കാണും. അത് കണ്ടില്ലേ അവന് സങ്കടവും വരും. Then what is the point? Like, who are you trying to fool? You need this. You need this as much as you need your food, water, and everything else, because this is what you thrive on. This is what makes you feel alive, right? And when it came to the next level, which was traveling during the pandemic, like I said in my post, I did it out of a necessity. I did it out of sheer necessity. I left my house. Like I told you, I grew up in the Middle East. I left my house on 30th of January for work. I had to come down to Kerala for something. At that point in time, I had clients in Kuwait. I was setting up a business in Kuwait. I was trying to sort of slowly build a position for myself in Kuwait. I left Kuwait and my family, my mother, my father, and my sister. I left them and I came to Kerala in the middle of the pandemic. And I was or right before the pandemic began, and I had some 1 month of work. And while this happened, things got really, really bad to the point where by March 6th they shut down the country of Kuwait. This is March 6th of 2020. Today is August the 19th. August the 19th of 2021. Until today they have not opened up Kuwait to visitors. During that time, my mother, who spent, if I'm not mistaken, 26 years of her life in that country, and I had spent 15 years of my life in that country. So basically we call this place home. My mother by herself had to pack everything she had into 2 suitcases and shift, because she found a better job. And she obviously, you know how the situation in the Middle East is. It's not good economically speaking, socially speaking, culturally speaking. It's not a good situation to be an immigrant at this point of time, right? And through no fault of anyone, it's just time, right? So in 2 suitcases, she packed 26 years worth of memories, and she moved continents, which meant that I essentially lost my last chance of seeing my childhood home. I got out of there expecting to come out to go back home at least one more time and say bye to everything and everyone, and then come out. But I didn't get that chance. I lost my home. One fine day, it's not there. The place that I called home, my idea of home is lost. Then my idea of home is transferred to the embodiment of it, which is my mother. And because of the pandemic and because of the fact that she moved to a new country, it was not easy for me to go and meet her, right? And also because the sort of the logistics involved is impossible, right? It'll cost you a good chunk of money just to travel from India to the US. And I was fortunate enough that I had a visa that I was able to travel, but my category of visa did not allow me to directly travel from India to the US. Where my mother was, or where my mother is. So I had to travel from India, and I had to overcome what is known as a country ban. I had to travel from India to go to a third country and spend at least 14 days there. And from there, I had to travel to the US. So as I was thinking about this, there was also the issue with vaccinations, right? And we couldn't find vaccinations, and I really needed the vaccination because I'm an immunocompromised individual. So people don't know this about me, but I have severe health issues, right? I was hospitalized in 2019 with an autoimmune disorder. So I was looking at every single possibility of getting a vaccine because it meant my life depended on it, right? In the attempt to do so, I found out that Russia is having vaccinations. And for a moment, I even considered traveling to Russia. To get these vaccines. However strong their efficacy was, how this thing was. And to me, yes, it's an expensive proposition. It would have cost me, if I decided to do that, it would have cost me at least 1 lakh rupees, right? But that 1 lakh rupees is far less than the price I would have had to pay in terms of my life, right? ജീവൻ പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് എനിക്ക് 1 ലക്ഷം രൂപ ഞാൻ ലാഭിച്ചെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ whatever. But can you imagine if I had done that? Can you imagine the flack I would have gotten from people? what they would have told me. That 1 lakh rupees is അത് മരത്തെ കളിക്കുന്നില്ല, ഞാൻ മരം കുലിക്കാൻ വരുന്നതല്ലേ 1 ലക്ഷം രൂപ, അത് ഞാൻ തന്നെ പോയി പണിയെടുത്ത് പട്ടിപ്പണി എടുത്ത് ഉണ്ടാക്കണം. ഓക്കെ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ എവിടെന്നെങ്കിലും കടം എടുത്തിട്ട് വേണം അങ്ങനെ പോകാനായിട്ട്. But people don't see that. People only see the glorified good stuff and they're like, okay fine, ഇങ്ങനെ ഞാൻ പോയിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ അതായിരുന്നു അവസ്ഥ. Then thankfully, by the grace of God, things opened up. Our country was fortunate enough to have met vaccine capacities, and I got my vaccine. Right. Then once I got vaccinated, I decided, okay, it's time for me to go meet my mom. And then since I had done research on Russia, I knew that, okay, I can go via Russia to the US. And there are many other countries. I could go to Qatar and do the same thing. I could go stay in Qatar for 14 days and I could travel. I could go to Belgrade, which is in Serbia. I could do the same thing. But I don't have anybody in these countries who I can just freely walk into and say, hey, can you give me a space to stay for 14 days? Which meant for every day I would have had to spend a good chunk of money on hotels, food, accommodation, etc., etc. Right? At the same time, I had my friend Sharan, who just like me, how I grew up in Kuwait, he was born and raised in Russia. And his entire family is there, and he's also stayed away from his family. So, and his mother, father and brother were stuck there. And they couldn't come here because if they come to India, it's impossible for them to go back, etc., etc. There are a lot of problems. So what did we do? We took the conscious decision for all of us to sort of, Urvashi Shaba Anigraham എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുന്ന പോലെ ഞങ്ങൾ എല്ലാവരും ഒരുമിച്ച്, okay, we all decided to go to Russia. Sharan to meet his parents, me tagging along with Sharan so that I could stay there for 14 days. I won't call it quarantine because we were out and about, right? But isolate and sort of overcome the country, man. Spend those 14 days in Russia and then travel to the US. Along, when we decided to go, a lot of people who were also with us were like, hey, since you guys are going, why don't we also tag along, because we also need a break from this. Now this is, remember, ഇതൊന്നും ഞങ്ങളൊന്നും എന്താ പറയുക, എന്റെ അപ്പം കോടീശ്വരനല്ല, എന്റെ കൂട്ടുകാരുടെ അപ്പന്മാരും കോടീശ്വരന്മാരല്ല. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പനോ അമ്മയോ കോടീശ്വരനോ കോടീശ്വരിയോ അല്ല. ഞങ്ങളെല്ലാവരും കഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട് ജോലിയെടുത്ത് ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന കാശ് മുടക്കി ഞങ്ങൾ യാത്ര ചെയ്യാൻ തീരുമാനിച്ചു. ഞങ്ങൾ അതിനുവേണ്ടിയുള്ള കാശ് മാറ്റി വെച്ചു. And yeah, we consider ourselves fortunate to be able to have done this. Okay, ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് അത്രയും ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നത്, of course it comes because we are people from like having the background to do that. We are educated enough to get good jobs, and we have the fortune of having the ability to sort of work our way through this and figure out a like means to get there. അപ്പോൾ ഇങ്ങനെ യാത്ര ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ സമൂഹ മാധ്യമങ്ങളിലും പിന്നെ ട്രഡീഷണൽ മാധ്യമങ്ങളിലും ഇതിനെപ്പറ്റി വളരെ മ്ലേച്ഛമായ രീതിയിൽ, വളരെ വളരെ അൺപാർലമെന്ററി ആയ രീതിയിൽ ഇതിനെപ്പറ്റി സംസാരിച്ചു. They made different accusations saying that we traveled in the middle of a pandemic. That was one argument that they made. They made the argument that we were philandering around. Lot of very cheap sort of bites came out. Okay, and we are to be blamed partly for it because we thought, okay, we are traveling, why not let people live vicariously through us and show us, okay, our life, and give them a like outlook into our life so that they can see, hey, this is what's happening, and maybe they will also be inspired to travel. Maybe they'll also know that, okay, Russia is open for business, this is what you can do here. അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ കാണിച്ചു കൊടുക്കാന്നുള്ള രീതിയിൽ ചെയ്തു. And ഞാൻ ഒരിക്കലും പറഞ്ഞില്ല, I never told anyone that I'm doing this so that I can go be with my mother. And you know why that is? Because I was not sure. I myself was not sure that I will be able to get there. ഓരോ കടന്നിൽ കടക്കുമ്പോഴും ഞാൻ ദൈവത്തിനോട് I was like thankful to God that I got through. First hurdle was getting a PCR negative in India, which I did. Second hurdle was getting a Russian visa. Thankfully, I did. Third hurdle was spending 15 days without getting COVID in Russia, because I also had work there. I also had like content being created there, so I had to travel. So I had to make sure that I was COVID negative. Thankfully that happened. Then I had to get a negative PCR test there. Then when I did travel like that, I was one of probably the first person that I knew who did this, right? And other people were waiting on me to travel so that they could do the same thing.
Right.
So I didn't know if the US would accept me until I crossed onto American soil, until the border customs and border patrol officer stamped his stamp on my passport saying welcome to the United States. I was not sure I was going to be able to get in. ഇതിന്റെയൊക്കെ ഇടക്കാണ് ആൾക്കാർ വന്നിട്ട്, ഓ, യു ആർ യൂസിങ് സോഷ്യൽ ക്യാപിറ്റൽ, നിങ്ങൾ നായരായതുകൊണ്ടാണ്, നിങ്ങൾ മേനോനായതുകൊണ്ടാണ്, നിങ്ങൾ അങ്ങനെയാണ് ഇങ്ങനെയാണ്, ദിസ് ഇസ് yeah, I am like, bro, first of all, you don't know if I'm a Nair or a Menon. My mother is a Roman Catholic, she's a Christian. Okay, I don't know what you're on about. Okay. I've never put a label anywhere saying that I am this, I am that, right? But forget it. Even if I do, that's my prerogative. Right? Like the same way that you feel it's casteist for someone to insult somebody of a lower caste, it's exactly the same thing. You're insulting my caste, my religion, and my identity. It's exactly the same thing. So I felt personally attacked, and I lost my shit. I went apeshit, for lack of a better word. And I literally, anyone who commented, and I started giving it back to them. And I'm not proud of the way I behaved, but I thought it was necessary for me to put people in their place and tell them that you are wrong, because tomorrow I don't want this pricking at my conscience saying, hey, I had an opportunity to tell somebody that they were wrong and they didn't, and because of that they've become what they are today. Right? So I lost my shit. I went crazy. I responded to every single hater. I had huge fights with my friends because of this. It affected my trip. Essentially, on those 14 days, at least 2 days, my trip was affected because of this entire scenario, right? And at the end of it, I decided, okay, the best way to respond to this is show the world this is why I came. And then when I reached, I made that video and I showed the world, hey, I traveled because of this reason. Yeah. And I think that put an end to it. And I really haven't had anyone come up and say, hey, this is wrong. But I'm sure the next time I put up something else, that somebody will be against it. Like they say, opinions are like asshole. Everyone has one, but most of the time, just shit comes out of it.
Right.
So that is what it is.
Yeah, and it's really strange how ഇപ്പോൾ 100 നല്ല കമന്റ് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ and you have 2 really negative comments, you always focus on the negative for some reason. At least that's what happens to most people, and you lose your shit because maybe you have to train yourself to not.
ഇല്ല, അതൊരു നാച്ചുറൽ ഇൻസ്റ്റിങ്ക്റ്റ് അല്ലേ. ഞാനിപ്പോൾ ഇട്ടേക്കുന്ന ഒരു വെള്ള ഷർട്ടാണ് അല്ലേ. ഈ വെള്ള ഷർട്ടിൽ ഒരു ചെറിയൊരു മഞ്ഞ കളർ കറ വീണ, that will be the thing that will stand out the most. The ugliest, most insignificant thing will be what will be standing out the most. It puts a wrench in the whole work, in the whole getup of what you're trying to achieve, right? So can you really blame somebody for going after the negative comments? Because you at the end of the day, that is a blemish on an otherwise sort of perfect attempt at doing this. And I always, like you said, I always think, okay, I'm at the bottom rung of a really, really tall ladder, and this is what I'm going through. Can you imagine somebody who has 10 million followers, 20 million followers? Can you imagine what they're going through?
Exactly.
And they didn't get there because their father was somebody or their mother was somebody. They would have worked their asses off to get there. എന്നിട്ടും ആൾക്കാർക്ക് എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒക്കെ പറയാനുണ്ടാവും. So that I don't know if it's a Malayali mentality or if it's something to do with cultural dimensions. പക്ഷെ ഒരുമാതിരി ഒരു ചീപ്പ് സ്വഭാവമാണ് പറയാതിരിക്കാൻ. ഉള്ളവനും നന്നാവുന്നവനെ നന്നാവാൻ സമ്മതിക്കത്തില്ല, വൃത്തിട്ട സ്വഭാവം.
പിന്നെ ബാക്കിയുള്ളവരുടെ കാര്യത്തിൽ തലയിടുന്നത്, ഇതൊക്കെ നമ്മുടെ ഇതിൽ ഇറ്റ്സ് ജസ്റ്റ് സോ ഇൻഗ്രെയിൻഡ് വിത്തിൻ ആർ, ഐ തിങ്ക്. പക്ഷെ കുറെ കൂടെ ഇപ്പൊ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ ഐ ഫീൽ ദാറ്റ് our generation is really changing a lot of the things. At least people I feel like the people I know, at least maybe that's because I am exposed to that circle of people. I'm lucky to be exposed to that circle of people.
That is sort of the curse and the blessing of our position, right? When we only look at the world from the people that we know. അതിന്റെ ഒരു 10 സ്റ്റെപ്പ് വെളിയിലോട്ട് ഇറങ്ങി നോക്കിയാൽ കാണാൻ പറ്റും. ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ, ഒരു കുറച്ച് നാൾ മുമ്പേ, ഞാൻ പേരെടുത്ത് പറഞ്ഞില്ല, കേരളത്തിൽ പ്രമുഖരായ 2 വ്ളോഗേഴ്സ് അവരുടെ വണ്ടി എന്തോ മോട്ടോർ വെഹിക്കിൾ ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ് പിടിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് പോയെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് അവന്മാര് കുറെ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ ചെയ്തു. Okay, they went to the MVD office and they created a ruckus there and they recorded on camera. Now, being from a social media background, I can understand അവനത് ചെയ്തത് any publicity is good publicity എന്നുള്ളൊരു ലുക്ക് വെച്ചിട്ടാണ്. Okay, അവരെന്തോ ചെയ്തു, അവർക്ക് എന്തോ സംഭവിച്ചു, understandable. I relate to their issues up to a certain extent, and I would sort of vilify them for some of the stuff that they are doing. But എന്താണേലും ഇതിനോടുണ്ടായ റിയാക്ഷൻ, കേരളത്തിൽ നിന്നും ഉണ്ടായ റിയാക്ഷൻ ഫ്രം ദി യങ് പീപ്പിൾ ആസ് യങ് as 19-20 years old, their reaction was that കേരളം കത്തിച്ചു കളയും, MVDയിലുള്ള എല്ലാ അവന്മാരെയും കൊന്നു കളയും എന്നൊക്കെയാണ് അവർ പറഞ്ഞത്. വാട്ട് ആൻഡ് വൈ? ഇതാണോ താൻ പറഞ്ഞ കേരളം മാറുന്നത്? ഐ ഫീൽ ഇറ്റ്സ് ബിക്കം വേഴ്സ്. This is the generation that we are going to hand the keys to in the coming years. ഈ പറഞ്ഞ 19-20 വയസ്സുള്ളവനാണ് ഇപ്പൊ കോളേജിൽ പോലും പോകാതെ അവിടെ വീട്ടിൽ ഇരുന്ന് കമ്പ്യൂട്ടറിന് മുമ്പിൽ ക്ലാസ് കണ്ടോണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നതാണ്. അവന് വിദ്യാഭ്യാസം ഇല്ല, വിവരമില്ല. അവന് വീട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് വെളിയിൽ ഇറങ്ങണമെങ്കിൽ അവന്റെ അമ്മയുടെ പെർമിഷൻ ചോദിക്കണം. എന്നിട്ടാണ് അവൻ പറഞ്ഞത് അവൻ പോയി കേരളം കത്തിക്കുമെന്ന്. അവൻ look at his outlook towards the world. So do you really think that Kerala has changed? I don't. I feel like it's becoming worse. I think it's becoming worse because people are becoming bigger ignoramuses, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
and I'm proud. I'm very proud to say I'm a Malayali. ഞാൻ കേരളത്തിൽ നിന്നാണ്. കേരളം അങ്ങനെയാണ് 100% ലിറ്ററസി. അതായത് അതൊക്കെ ഇങ്ങനെ 2-3 ഇറങ്ങിയാൽ കഴിഞ്ഞില്ലേ കേരളത്തിന്റെ കാര്യം.
Yeah, and ശരിയാ actually when you spoke about this, there were other ഇപ്പൊ കുറച്ച് വേറെ scenarios ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു where some of these other vloggers, not this particular vlogger, but another very very famous traveler vlogger talking about COVID ഇല്ല, ഇങ്ങനത്തെ bullshit കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ വന്നിട്ട്. See, the problem with this is that you have around 1 million followers, okay, on Instagram, and you
YouTube
influence
or
a lot of
Instagram,
you influence a lot of these youngsters. Like you said, ഈ 18-19 വയസ്സുള്ള പിള്ളേരെ ഇൻഫ്ലുവൻസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് I think you need to be more responsible when you are on social media.
No, who is to be blamed here? Is it the quote unquote influencer who is?
I would blame the
who's
influencer.
too stupid for his own good? I would blame the people who pick these role models, right? Have better role models. Why would you pick this guy to be your role
That's
model?
because
Whoever this person is.
that's because that's what you're exposed to, right? ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു majority ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു see, maybe not everyone's going to watch you or
That
me.
is an absolute lie. ഒരു 10 വർഷം മുമ്പ് എന്നോട് പറഞ്ഞെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ സമ്മതിച്ചേനെ. 10 വർഷം മുമ്പ് this is all you're exposed to. ഇന്ന് നിന്റെ പോക്കറ്റിനകത്ത് കിടക്കുന്ന സാധനം വെച്ച് നിനക്ക് ജോർജ് ബുഷിന്റെ കക്കൂസിൽ എന്താ നടക്കുന്നത് അറിയാൻ പറ്റും. Okay, എന്നിട്ട് whatever you want to know, you can find out, right? You can find out online. Okay, അപ്പോൾ you have the access to everything, and ലിറ്ററലി ലോകത്തിലുള്ള ആരെ വേണമെങ്കിലും നമുക്ക് പോയി ഫോളോ ചെയ്യാം. യു ക്യാൻ, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് നെൽസൺ, വാട്ട് ഇസ് ഹിസ് നെയിം, യു വാണ്ട് സ്പീക്ക് ടു ബാരക് ഒബാമ, you can directly tweet at him, right? I don't think there has been a better sort of time or space in history to be in terms of being able to communicate with our role models, in terms of being able to communicate with those in power than we are in today. Right? And in a world like that, why choose to go behind people who speak and spew absolute nonsense? So why not change your role models, find better role models? If it's cars and bikes you like, I am sure there are people of class, of dignity, of learned knowledge about these matters, right? അല്ല ചുമ്മാ റോഡിൽ കൂടെ ഗോപ്രോയും വെച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ബൈക്ക് ഓടിച്ച് വല്ലോന്റെ നെഞ്ചത്ത് കയറ്റി ഓടിക്കുന്നവനെ മാത്രമല്ല, ട്രാക്കിൽ കൂടെ കഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട് ബൈക്ക് ഓടിക്കുന്നവനും ഉണ്ട്. അവൻ വർഷങ്ങളോളം അവന്റെ സ്കിൽ ഹോൺ ചെയ്ത് ഇല്ലാത്ത കാശ് ഉണ്ടാക്കി അവൻ ബൈക്കും മേടിച്ച് ഇത് ചെയ്യുന്ന ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. നമ്മുടെ സ്വന്തം നാട്ടിൽ നിന്നുള്ള ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. You don't have to go, നിങ്ങൾ അമേരിക്കയിലും യൂറോപ്പിലും പോയി കാണേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല. There are track racers from our own country who have, and from our own state for that matter, who have worked their asses off to get where they are. If it's traveling that you like, ഒരു എവിടെയോ നമ്മുടെ ഒരു village officer, he was a village officer who took a bicycle. He took a bicycle and he's traveling from Kerala to Singapore by cycle. He's a village officer, a government employee, a government servant, and on his limited means, on his limited salary, 36,000 രൂപയ്ക്ക് എങ്ങാണ്ടാണ് പുള്ളി കേരളത്തിന്റെ ഒരറ്റത്തുനിന്ന് ഏഷ്യയുടെ വേറെ അറ്റത്തേക്ക് പോകുന്നത്. He's going to the southernmost tip of Asia, if I'm not mistaken. He's going to Singapore using a സാധാരണ BSയുടെ സൈക്കിൾ. So അങ്ങനെ ജീവിക്കുന്ന ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട്. Why not be inspired by people like this? Why go behind people? കഞ്ചാവിന്റെ ചെടിയൊക്കെ എടുത്ത് ക്യാമറയുടെ മുമ്പിൽ കാണിക്കുന്നവനെയാണോ നിനക്ക് വേണ്ടത്, അതോ ഇതുപോലെ ഇൻസ്പിറേഷൻ ആയിട്ടുള്ള സ്റ്റോറി ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആൾക്കാരെയാണോ വേണ്ടത്? So you have to make the conscious decision to pick your role models. And these influencers only influence because we let them. അവർക്ക് ഈ 1 million followers ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, that's because people are stupid enough to come and say, hey, this guy is good enough for me, and follow him. Yeah.
See, the thing there, I'm still a little conflicted in the sense that on social media, let's say on YouTube, ipo njan കാണുന്ന let's take the example of news channels, okay, that I watch. If I lean towards the right, എനിക്ക് വരുന്ന content എല്ലാം right wing,
content will be right
leaning ആയിരിക്കും. So how do I even, if I'm entirely neck deep in that kind of content, ആരും ഇപ്പൊ ഞാനിത് കാണുന്നില്ല, ഇങ്ങനൊരു സംഭവം ഉണ്ടെന്ന് ഞാൻ അറിയുന്നില്ല, ലെഫ്റ്റിന്റെ കാര്യങ്ങളാണെങ്കിലും സോ ഇറ്റ്സ് വെരി ഡിഫിക്കൾട്ട് ഇസ് വാട്ട് ഐം സെയിങ്, ബിക്കോസ് ഈവൻ ഇപ്പൊ ബാക്കിയുള്ള 18-year-old 19-year-old, at least the majority of the people probably follow this particular guy, right? It's not very easy is what I'm saying, like to even find out. If bro, like not a lot of people know that you make content maybe, right? The message that you're giving out, not a lot of people agree to that. So anganane, there are so many of us, even if it's creators, there's so many of us trying to say the right thing as much as possible, but at the same time endu paranjalum follow cheyan aalkar ipo Kerala kattikku ennokke parnja, like that is utter bullshit. Like dude, you have not seen life, you don't know what life is, and what are you standing for really? Like that annoys the shit out of me, yes, but at the same time I know what I was when I was 18. I wasn't probably as smart as I am now. Like I was not wise enough to, I've also done a lot of stupid shit, so I can kind of understand at the same time, but I know what you're saying as well.
there's a very famous quote by Rumi, right? One of my favorite poets, Jalaluddin Rumi, Sufi poet and saint. He says, yesterday I was clever and I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise and I realize it is me, myself, who I should change. So at the end of the day, you said, we don't get a choice on who we follow or where we go to follow these people, because it's based on this thing. I'm saying, why choose to follow these people? Why not form your own opinions?
Totally.
Why not form your own opinions? ഇതിനകത്തു നിന്ന് ഇറങ്ങി വരണമെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് നമ്മുടേതായ സ്വന്തമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഒപ്പീനിയൻ ഉണ്ടാണ്. അതിനുവേണ്ടി എന്താണ് ബേസിക് ആയിട്ട് വേണ്ട കാര്യം? വിദ്യാഭ്യാസമാണ്. ഓക്കെ, ഞാൻ ഈ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് നിങ്ങൾ പോയി എന്താ പറയുന്നത് പ്രൈവറ്റ് സ്കൂളിൽ പോയി പോഷായിട്ട് പോയി പഠിക്കുന്ന കാര്യമല്ല. എന്ത് കിട്ടിയാലും ഒരു പുസ്തകം കിട്ടിയാൽ അതിനെപ്പറ്റി വായിക്കുക. എന്താണ് നിങ്ങൾ വിശ്വസിക്കുന്നത്? എന്താണ് നിങ്ങൾ ഇഫ് യു ആർ റൈറ്റ് ലീനിങ്, അത് എന്താണ് ഈ റൈറ്റ് ഓഫ് സെന്റർ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ എന്താണ് ഇതിൽ പറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ? അതിലും കുറെ നല്ല കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാവും. ആ നല്ല കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഉൾക്കൊണ്ടുള്ളൂ. അറ്റ് ദ സെയിം ടൈം ഓൾസോ ബി റെസ്പെക്ട്ഫുൾ ഓഫ് ദ ഫാക്ട് ദാറ്റ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വിപരീതമായ ഒരു ഔട്ട്ലുക്ക് ഉള്ള ഒരാൾ തെറ്റായ കാര്യങ്ങളല്ലായിരിക്കും പറയുന്നത്, അയാൾ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ പെർസ്പെക്റ്റീവിൽ നിന്നാണ് സംസാരിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് അക്സെപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാനുള്ള ഒരു കഴിവ്. അതിന് നമുക്ക് വേണ്ടിയത് is the ability to listen. If you are just going on going on in your one track mind and saying idu maathram njan cheyatullu, then there's nothing you can do about it.
There's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, totally. That's really important thing to say when you say that. Ipo right wing inde karyam parnappo, you are someone who openly criticizes things that you don't think is right. Ipo
of course
you're very I would say, I would use the word
irreverent and outspoken.
And it takes a lot of courage also. I wouldn't lie. Maybe I wouldn't I would post stories of things I don't feel is right, but I wouldn't cross a limit because of fear. I'll be very honest with you. I don't have കൊച്ചുനാൾ തൊട്ടേ ഇപ്പം ഞാൻ വീട്ടിലൊക്കെ ആയിരുന്നപ്പോഴും ഇഫ് യു സേ സംതിങ്, ഞാൻ ബഹ്റിനിലായിരുന്നപ്പോൾ ഇഫ് യു സേ ദാറ്റ് എനിക്ക് ഇപ്പോൾ ബഹ്റിൻ്റെ രാജാവിനെ ഇഷ്ടമല്ല എന്ന് ഞാൻ പറയാം, you're hushed. You're അങ്ങനെ പറയല്ലേ മോനെ, അങ്ങനെ പറയല്ലേ, ആരെങ്കിലും കേട്ട് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പ്രശ്നം. സോ ഇൻ ദ സെയിം വേ, when it comes to politicians, you know the power that they have. Probably they don't even give a shit anymore. Yes, that is, or maybe they do. But when you anytime say something against the government, against the ruling party, you are always told to suppress yourself. At least that's what I have experienced. So where does this come from? That whatever I think is right, what I feel end opinion, and I'm doing the right thing, you just come out, even though people probably don't validate that kind of content. A lot of people are like, what the fuck are you saying? Why are you blaming the PM for a lot of the things? So anganaka parayumbo, what still pushes you to go ahead and still do it?
Couple of things. One, I wasn't very political. I didn't know. I mean, maybe I was. Maybe I didn't know the fact that I was political, right? I always had a sort of എൻ്റെ വീട്ടിൽ, for example, എൻ്റെ അച്ഛൻ എല്ലാ വീട്ടിലെ മലയാളി അച്ഛന്മാരെ പോലെ ന്യൂസ് വെക്കും. And I see it irritated. I say, what the fuck, I want to watch my cartoons. What is going on? Fucking news. Okay. Then പണ്ടാറത്തിലെ പുള്ളിയല്ലേ കാശ് കൊടുക്കുന്നത്, പുള്ളിയുടെ എന്തെങ്കിലും പറയാൻ പറ്റും, പുള്ളിയുടെ ടി വി, പുള്ളിയുടെ വീട്, ഞാൻ ഇവിടെ വെറുതെ അതിഥി, എന്നാ പിന്നെ എന്നായിരുന്നു കണ്ടേക്കാന്ന് വിചാരിച്ചു ഞാനിരുന്ന് കണ്ടു. ഓക്കെ, ആൻഡ് ഐ റിമെമ്പർ ഞാൻ കുട്ടിക്കാലത്ത് ഒരു ഏഷ്യാനെറ്റ് ന്യൂസ്, ഐ തിങ്ക് ഏഷ്യാനെറ്റ് ന്യൂസ് started I think Asian News was the first 24-hour news channel in the state, right? And even before that, even much before this, you won't believe it, my link with the media is so far back that when Asianet started, I don't know how old you are, but I don't know if you even remember this. Okay, when Asianet started, it was not a full-time channel. It used to come only after 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the Sheshadand. Asianet would come, and it was when it was not a geosynchronous satellite. It was one of those turning satellites. So the other geosynchronous opposite എന്താണ് പോളാർ സാറ്റലൈറ്റ്. ഈ പോളാർ സാറ്റലൈറ്റ് ഇങ്ങനെ വരുമ്പോൾ ഇന്ത്യയുടെ മോളിൽ വരുമ്പോൾ മാത്രം, അപ്പൊ 1 മണിക്കോ 2 മണിക്കോ മാത്രമേ സാറ്റലൈറ്റ് മോളിൽ വരും. അപ്പൊ കറക്റ്റ് ഫസ്റ്റ് സാറ്റലൈറ്റ് ചാനൽ ഏഷ്യാനെറ്റ് ഫസ്റ്റ് ചാനൽ, അപ്പൊ 4 മണിക്ക് വരും. സോ മൈ ഫാദർ യൂസ് ടു ഹാവ് എ കേബിൾ ടി വി ബിസിനസ്. ഞങ്ങളുടെ വീട്ടിൽ 5-6 ഡിഷൊക്കെ വെച്ചിട്ട് ഇവിടുത്തെ കേബിൾ വലിച്ച് അപ്പുറത്തെ ഇപ്പുറത്തെ വീട്ടുകളിലൊക്കെ കൊണ്ടുപോയി കൊടുക്കുന്നതാണ്. 100-200 രൂപയ്ക്കും കൊണ്ടുപോയി കൊടുക്കുന്നതാണ്. സോ ഈ കേബിൾ ടി വി ബിസിനസ് ഉള്ള കാരണം ലോകത്തിലുള്ള എല്ലാ ചാനലും അവിടുന്ന് ഇവിടുന്ന് വരുന്ന എല്ലാം കാണാൻ പറ്റും. അങ്ങനെ കുറച്ചൊക്കെ most of them are news channels. Okay, അങ്ങനെ കുറച്ചൊക്കെ ന്യൂസ് കണ്ടു തുടങ്ങി. പിന്നെ എന്റെ അച്ഛൻ ഇതുപോലെ തന്നെ ടി വി വെച്ച് ന്യൂസ് ആണ്. സോ ഓൾ ദീസ് ആബ്സല്യൂട്ട്ലി ആരും കേൾക്കാതെ DW ന്യൂസ്. പിന്നെ BBC-ക്ക് ഒരു 5-6 ചാനൽ ഉണ്ടെന്നൊക്കെ I used to know back in the, there's not just one BBC, but there are so many BBC channels. Okay, then CNN, Fox News, all of these channels. So I was exposed to the news cycle from a very, very young age, and it just sort of struck with me. And and I became accepting of the fact that politics is part and parcel of who I am. I watched live on the news as the Twin Towers fell. I remember waking up one day, going to school, and then this girl from my school, right? Her name is Rachel Sandy Menezes. She came up to me, and Rachel was like, "Hey, did you hear Kalpana Chawla died?" And I was like, "Oh, dude, that's really sad. Who's Kalpana Chawla?" Okay, so even the people I hung out with were people who discussed these things and people who had the sort of propensity towards politics, governance, or current affairs for that matter. So I became enamored by this idea, and I always like to keep abreast. At around 21, 22, I was part of a youth-run organization. I was part of a youth-run organization called ISEC, AIESEC. It is the world's largest student-run organization. It is the first real job that I had. Right, I was a volunteer there. I wouldn't call it a job, but still, it was a student-run organization, and it was a very holier than thou experience. You know, you are young, you're idealistic, you're 18, 19 years old. You join this organization, and your whole aim is the aim of this organization is to change the world, to promote world peace through international exchange of students. Right. So when I was part of this organization, I started trying to embody the values, or started trying to embody the values of the organization. It's called E-Salad, right? It is enjoying participation, striving for excellence, activating leadership, living diversely, and demonstrating integrity. These were the 5 values, right? So I try to embody these values, and I realized that people around me suffer more than I understand, right? And there are problems bigger than me. And this was round about the time when the first general elections that I was eligible to vote for happened, the 2014 general elections, right? I was 22 years old at that point in time, and 22 or 21, I don't remember, whatever, I think 22, right? I was 22 years old at that point in time, and it's the first time that I'm going to go to get to vote, and people are telling me the significance of my vote. One vote can change the world. So I was like, okay, fine. So I started reading up about it. I started reading up about the history of the two parties that were involved, the history of the politics involved, the politicians involved, and I learned some things about this. Right? And I was shocked to learn some of the tools that I was learning, and I was like, hey, why doesn't everybody know this? At the same time, I had a friend who was sort of a guiding light for me towards these things. He was also politically opinionated. He was the same age as me, and he was well read in these things. He was an economist. He was studying economics at Loyola at that point in time. His name is Anirudh Bele. He's reading law at Oxford today, and hoping he'll do great things for our country someday, at least for the world. So my friend Anirudh also had the same sort of outlook, and Anirudh wanted to do something about it. And he decided to start this organization called Youth Speak India, which basically the aim of this organization was to form an informed electorate, right? To inform people, hey, this is what is happening around you, and maybe you should know about it, right? This is why you should vote. This is why you should care about the union budget. This is why you should care about your state budget. This is why you should care about the food ordinance law that's coming out. This is why you should care about your fundamental rights, etc., etc., etc. So when I started, learning these things, I realized, okay, there's a lot more to happen, and I really I wanted my vote to count. We would be part of we started this thing called What's Brewing, right? It was essentially where you go sit down in coffee shops, and you sit down and you talk about politics and political ideologies and all of these, and we have panelists come in and discuss all these things, And what's funny is this happened in 2014. Months before our honorable Prime Minister decided to do something called Chai Pe Charcha. So it's funny how that we are thinking on the same wavelength. Okay. Anyways, okay. Yeah. So we decided to be part of this experience, and I tried really hard to convince people, this is what is right. You should not vote for this guy. You should vote for this guy instead because blah blah blah. Right. And at the end of the day, my predictions all came out wrong. Okay, somebody whatever, the results, the story.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever. Then I was like, okay, fine, let's see what these guys do. And I did. I spent 4 years of my life waiting on seeing what happened, and then another election cycle happened. And then I saw that again, the same thing. This time I didn't really do anything consciously. I didn't put any effort to change the things. I was just listening and understanding what happened. And when the second time it happened, I saw that the trends were not exactly to my favor. And like you said, Ronnie, you said you grew up in the Middle East, right? And there were so many sort of problems that you saw whether you wanted to speak out about, but you couldn't, because I think because you cared for the fact that your loved ones were going to get into trouble.
Yeah.
I think that would have been the biggest problem.
That's
right?
the
Your
biggest
parents,
problem, always.
Yeah, your parents, for example, who have a job there, you cannot really speak against somebody you can't bite the hand that feeds you, right? So I had the same issue. I had a sister, I had a mother, I had a father, all of whom were involved, and I couldn't really, put my family at risk. They'd come after people I love. Then I waited, and then thankfully എന്റെ പേരൻസിന് അമേരിക്കൻ വിസ ഒക്കെ കിട്ടി, എന്റെ പെങ്ങൾക്കും കിട്ടി, അവര് പോയി, ഞാനിവിടെ ഉണ്ട്. ഇനിയിപ്പോ അവര് വരുവാണെങ്കിൽ എനിക്കെതിരെ മാത്രമല്ലേ വരത്തുള്ളൂ. Let them come, okay? And you ask me why I do this. Why I do it today is because നാളെ എനിക്ക് കുട്ടികളുണ്ടായി, എനിക്ക് മക്കളുണ്ടായാൽ എന്റെ മക്കള് എന്നോട് ചോദിക്കാൻ സാധ്യതയുള്ള ചോദ്യമാണ്, നമ്മുടെ രാജ്യം ഇങ്ങനെ കിടന്ന് കത്തുമ്പോൾ അച്ഛൻ എന്ത് ചെയ്തു? Hey, what did you do to make an impact? So I can proudly get up and tell them, hey, at least I tried to get a conversation started on this, and this is what I did. And this is what I did in my attempt to make an impact, right? If and when the day comes, if something drastic happens, whether that's good or bad, I'd like to say that at least I gave 10% of my effort. എനിക്ക് ആകെ അറിയാവുന്ന ഇങ്ങനെ വായിട്ട് ചിലക്കാനാണ്, സംസാരിക്കാനായിട്ട് നന്നായിട്ട് അറിയാം. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെയാണെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ സംസാരിക്കാൻ തന്നെ തീരുമാനിച്ചിട്ട്, in order to be able to I put what I had. My skill is talking. So I use that to change public consensus about it. And along the way, I know that I have said some things that are very outspoken, very irreverent, very crass, for lack of a better word. And I realize that there needs to be change, and I'm attempting to do that. I'm attempting to have a more holistic approach. And like Voltaire said, I might not agree with everything that you say, but I will defend to my death your right to say it. So that is what I fight for. That is sort of the paradigm that I live by when it comes to my political opinions and my political viewpoints.
ഇതിന്റെ കാര്യം പറഞ്ഞപ്പോ another thing that is happening ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ ഒരു in our country, in the situation right now with all of the Pegasus and the shadow ban for the stories on Instagram, the Twitter problem that you have. I think that is the part that worries me the most. Being a citizen of this country, that is the part that worries me the most. Adinte main reason എന്താന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ, the day you are being shut, your opinions are being shut, then I don't think this is anymore a democracy. It's a dictatorship. If you're not allowed to say things that you're not allowed to express yourself, say things, and for people to see that as totally normal, and rather than shut you off, listen to that, or at least be like, okay, that's their opinion, let it be. But that's the part that worries me the most. And you are someone, I really like the comment that George Cora, right, obviously you know him,
George, of course,
the actor. So
he director,
he had put up a really good comment on one of your videos, which said that marrying pop culture with social commentary. So you're trying to really talk about things that matter, but at the same time really trying to give it in such a way that it's fun, it's easily digestible to anyone who doesn't like the jargon and all of that kind of technical side of things. So I mean, it's really it's really appreciated. I mean, even though you get a lot of hate from a lot of people, flack, but at the same time you should know that, I think you already know that, but just to tell you again, that a lot of us really value the kind of content that you make and the class of the content that's there. No matter what you say, there are people who relate to all of you guys, all of you guys who make all of those vlogs and those 2-minute, 3-minute videos. It really brightens up my day, a lot of your videos. So I just want to say that.
Thank you, man. Yeah, thank you, Ronnie. Yeah, so when it comes to this whole marrying pop culture with sort of current affairs, it was again, this is the perfect definition of progress, not perfection. I first started off by staring into a camera, sitting on a table and talking about it by reading a script off of a teleprompter. Then it became ad lib. I started screaming it out and doing something called Let's Talk, right? അത് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടാണ് ഇതൊക്കെ ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ I saw that, okay, people want to listen to this, but they don't want to spend a lot of time. right? The first one I did was 5 minutes long, right? Other people want less time, so then I tried to condense everything about it in 2.5 minutes. Then I realized, okay, 2.5 minutes italo aalkar 30 second കഴിയുമ്പോൾ their attention span will go away. So then I decided, okay, the best thing to do is just put out a fact there and make people interested in it. Rest, they will go do their research and find out.
Yeah.
And I think there is a huge space for content like that. I wish I had the ability and resources to be able to do more of it. I wish I do, and I hope to be able to do it. And I really see the potential in sort of marrying pop culture with current affairs so that you can make an informed electorate. That's always the hope and the dream, to make sure that people know who they're voting for, why they're voting for these people, and what they can expect from these people. So that'll be amazing.
Right. And I think, talking about 2-3 minute videos, we have gone on to speak for almost an hour and a half, but dude, this has been, thoroughly enjoyable.
It's been great, dude. Been great, dude. I hope I was not too verbose.
No, I mean, see,
hope I wasn't over
these are things that I really enjoy. I've always told people that, a lot of people have asked me that, എന്തിനാ ആൾക്കാർ നിന്റെ ഈ വീഡിയോ ഇരുന്ന് 1.5 മണിക്കൂർ എന്തിനു കേൾക്കുമെന്ന്. But at the same time, I know that there is that group of people who listen, who actually get something out of it. And this is just for those people. And I really like long form content. And, that's my motivation to kind of, go ahead and do something like this and have these long conversations so that you're thoroughly understood. Like if innippa arelum poi they search for Agrim and they actually find this, they understand you a lot more because you are giving your whole self. It's not just the nice parts in the 2-3 minute Instagram reels or the videos that you create.
Right.
Yeah. So
thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for having me, dude. And do you have an on-yours version of it? Do you have like an audio podcast as well, or is it just
so it's on it's everywhere. It's YouTube is just
it's on
one,
Spotify. So Anchor so it's on Anchor basically. So everywhere.
Spotify, Apple, everywhere. So awesome. it's a mix right now, but I think ipo koodudalam YouTube annanu thonnu. If you look at the analytics, I think people still find it a lot more on YouTube. So
on YouTube,
but YouTube is the biggest podcasting platform, to be honest. So
it is.
It is.
Yeah. So here's to you turning out to be the next Malayali Joe Rogan, or rather,
another problem with it. Another problem adil endaanu parnja, I tend to bring a lot of English into the conversation. Appo I would think it's still a Manglish podcast and not a. I'm just comfortable.
ഈ മലയാളിക്ക് ഉള്ളൊരു കഴിവ് അതാണ്. നമ്മൾ ഒരു ഏത് ഭാഷ സംസാരിച്ചാലും അറ്റവും മുറിയായിട്ട് ഇപ്പൊ ഒരു ഹിന്ദിക്കാരി ട്രെയിൻ പിടിച്ച് ഇവിടെ വന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ആ ഹിന്ദിക്കാരിയോട് എങ്ങനെയെങ്കിലും തട്ടിമുട്ടി ഹാസേ ഉദർ ജാവോ എന്ന് പറയാനുള്ള മലയാളം ഹിന്ദി നമ്മുടെ മലയാളിക്ക് അറിയാം. അപ്പൊ ഏത് ഭാഷയിലാണെങ്കിലും മലയാളിക്ക് മനസ്സിലാവുന്ന കാര്യം ഡോണ്ട് വറി, ബി ഹാപ്പിയാണ്.
അതെ, എന്റെ അമ്മ പണ്ട് ഇതുപോലെ മറ്റേ നമ്മുടെ ധോബിയുടെ ആള് വരുമല്ലോ, അപ്പൊ ഭയ്യ ലോണ്ടറി കിതറയെന്നൊക്കെ ചോദിക്കുന്ന കേൾക്കുമ്പോ ഐ യൂസ് ടു ഓൾവേസ് വണ്ടർ ലൈക്ക് എന്റെ അമ്മ എവിടെ ഹിന്ദി പഠിച്ചിട്ടാ, ബട്ട് സർവൈവ് ചെയ്യാൻ അറിയാം നമുക്ക്. ഭയ്യ കപ്പട ലാവോ എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞ് എങ്ങനെയും കാര്യം. അതെ, എക്സാക്ട്ലി. സോ താങ്ക് യു സോ മച്ച് ബ്രദർ, താങ്ക്സ് a lot. This was a lot of fun and I'm sure we'll do it again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye everyone.
Bye.